Hello, friends and fans. Today we're going to be talking about the Switch 2 Direct. Because I have a lot of feelings about everything that was shown off yesterday, and I want to talk about it because I think there's a lot of things to be excited for about this new console in terms of the things it's going to have and the things it showed. But there's also a lot of things I'm worried about, and I feel like it's interesting to talk about it. Because this is a console we've all been waiting for a few years now. I mean, the Switch 2, or whatever you want to call it, back when it was calling like Switch whatever the hell, I don't even know, Switch Deluxe, Switch Pro. Um, you know, that's been rumored since 2021, 2020. Like it's been rumored for a long time. And now that we're finally seeing something concrete about this console, it is interesting what things end up being true, things that we expected to be there that, we've been predicting for a long time, and then things that maybe came out of nowhere and we really had no way of even predicting. Um, and so I want to talk about all of it. So I'll start with kind of the console itself here. I think the console actually looks really cool. Obviously it's not much different than the Switch 1 in a lot of ways, in the sense that like it doesn't look very different on the outside. Design is very similar. We already knew all that though, obviously, so it's not really a shocking revelation by any means. And then of course like we saw the UI. The UI, in terms of like the main menu looks the exact same. Basically the few new things I'll talk about later. But overall, I mean, this is not something I think they try to like drastically change in terms of like what it looks like. Um, I think I think they kind of knew that the Switch 1 worked in that regard, and I think they wanted to make it as similar to that as they could. Um, and ultimately, I feel like that was probably for the best. I mean, the reality is, like I said, don't fix what ain't broke, so to speak. So, I actually think that was a good plan. I'm a little bit disappointed that the UI wasn't a little bit more interesting. While I don't think the UI is bad, like I said in the prediction video, I do kind of wish it had a little bit more flair going on. They did not announce themes yesterday, which I was really hoping they would do. Maybe they're still coming. I certainly think that's one of those things that they could announce at a later time, um, because maybe this thing was important enough to show up in this direct. But I sincerely hope that they do come eventually, because God, if I have to look at that same boring, like lifeless background again for another God knows how many years, I mean, it's not going to be great. And I really want something more interesting to look at than just, squares with the games in them, So um we'll see how that goes. Um in terms of the tech, I actually think it was really good. We talked briefly, Josh and I, about the idea of it having 4K, having 120 frames supported. And sure enough, it has both those things. Maybe not always all at once, depending on what game you're playing, but it has the power to do those things. It can do 120 frames, it can do 4K, and that's really impressive. Because I think people had questions about if this console is capable of doing that. And not only can it do it, but it can do it with a lot of games. And I think that's really exciting. Nintendo did a great job of really showing how this console, I think, was really improved from the Switch 1. I mean, the technical side of things is ultimately, I think, the big focus here. And that's because it's just so really impressive. I mean, like it is in some ways able to rival consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox Series, because it can do some of the things that those consoles can do. And I don't think anyone would have thought that'd be the case before yesterday. So huge props to Nintendo for making that happen. I honestly did not think that was going to be the case. I thought maybe it was a small chance, but I certainly wouldn't have bet my money on it or anything. So huge credit to them for that. Um, Next, I'll talk about the C button. So the C button, I don't even know if they've officially said what the C button actually stands for. I'm just going to say it stands for chat because I feel like that's what makes sense. Maybe it's connect. I don't even remember, but I'll say chat. So yeah, this is a feature for you to connect and chat with your friends. You can voice chat, you can even do video chat. You have the camera add-on. Um, and it actually, based on the way they showed it, it actually looks pretty cool. I mean, it seems like it's not that hard to use. It has a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do with it. You can just voice chat, you can share your screen, you can let other people watch your screen. Um, you can, of course, video chat. You have the camera add-on. And of course, then it has also the mic that apparently is actually really good at filtering out outside noise and just focusing on your voice. So it doesn't have any of that kind of, baggage of like, well, it's far away, so it's hard to use. No, even though your console might not be right next to you, it can still track your voice and pick it up apparently decently well. We'll see how it actually, works in practice, but according to Nintendo, um, it actually works pretty well. So that's something I'm excited for. I don't think I'll be kicking the camera feature, and we'll talk more about why that is later. But it's a cool thing, and I definitely think there are some people who are gonna really like having a feature like that. It's pretty cool. So, um, I think it's a cool feature. I'm a little bit disappointed that I didn't have to relate to like a Miiverse type thing because I actually think Miiverse is a really cool idea. I hope they bring it back still in some capacity, but at least for now, it doesn't seem like a like social media thing is in the works. So we'll see if that comes to fruition at some point. I don't know. Um, is there anything else I can talk about the Switch itself? I'm trying to think. Obviously as a fan, so that's kind of cool. I guess I talked about the mouse feature a little bit. Wasn't a whole lot shown with the mouse feature in terms of like anything new. Um, the biggest kind of takeaway we got from that feature was, the games that use that feature. Most notably that kind of like basketball game. Um, but yeah, ultimately I don't think there was a ton shown about it, but it's still cool. I mean, yeah, we got like kind of we also got that game shown off. That was like the Tech Demo S game, which more on that game later. But yeah, no, the mouse controls look cool. I still have kind of questions about like the practicality of it because obviously if I'm like sitting like on like a couch, right? Or like let me back up. If I'm sitting like on a chair, if I'm playing my Switch 2 and I have to use that mouse feature, like what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to like rub it up against like my leg or something? Like I feel like it isn't as obvious to use that feature maybe as you would think. Like um I don't know, like I question like how easily you'll be able to actually use that feature without feeling awkward. So I hope that's something that is I don't know, but I don't know if it'll be like more clarified before launch, but at least like help me imagine the vision there because I still feel like it's gonna be a bit awkward to use. Like unless you're like in like an open space, like a couch, where you have like a coffee table in front of you or something. Like I feel like the ability to use that will be a bit limited. So that's what I'm curious to see more of, but I don't know. I certainly am not down on it by any means. I think it has a lot of potential. I'm excited to see how it works more in practice. So yeah. I guess last we talked about the SD card thing. So obviously they're not using normal SD cards anymore. They're using micro SD express cards. Before they were using I think just normal micro SD cards. So a little bit annoying that we have to switch to SD cards again, but whatever, I guess. I don't know. It's the third console in a row that's done that now, so I guess that's how it goes. Whatever. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I guess Joy-Cons also have the bigger ZL and ZR buttons, thank God. That's nice. Um, but yeah, I think that's mostly it. Oh, I guess one thing I can talk about, there is also game share. So now, it only takes one person owning a game, and you can play multiplayer with anyone, even people who don't own the game, which is really cool because we saw this a little bit on the DS and 3DS eras. There were some games, I don't think it was every game. There were some games you could do this with. I remember like the one I was close to mind for me was Mario Kart 7. Mario Kart 7 was a game you were able to have people play with you, even if they didn't own the game themselves. It was awesome because it means that not everyone will buy the game. I'm happy to do that with this one. It means that not everyone has to own Mario Kart World in order to play Mario Kart World with you, which um might be a thing that actually happens with me, and I think a lot of other people more on that later. Um, and I think ultimately that is exciting. So I'm happy to see that. It gives people more options as how they can play and when they can play this console, and all the games on it. So that's exciting to me. I think overall, like, like if I were to break this down to like three main categories, which is like the Switch itself, Switch 2 itself rather, and then like third party games and then first party games. I think the Switch 2 itself was actually what I think what I was most blown away by in terms of like the amount of features on it. Um, I was definitely impressed with all the things that they added, the things that look improved. Ultimately, just the way in which they presented this console. I feel like they did a great job of I guess like that would term like explaining or justifying rather the price point um at 450, much more on that later. But yeah, I think it's actually pretty reasonable. Because 450 was always something that we think we kind of recognize as possible. But I don't many people actually expect it to be 450. So now that it actually is, some people are maybe a bit surprised and upset by it, but I think they did a fair job of justifying that. So I'm not upset by the 450 price point for the Switch 2 itself. So yeah. Next about the third party games. Um, I admit I don't have a ton to say about this because the reality is a lot of the games they show, while exciting, are games that have already come out and have been out. Some of them have been out for years on other consoles. So like it's cool. Like I'm really happy to see Final Fantasy VII Remake on this console. I love that game. But I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said I was gonna replay it on Switch 2 or anything. I don't think I'm gonna do that. If I was gonna replay the game, I just do it on PS5. Um, so, it's cool that it's there. I mean, obviously, if they haven't played the game before, there's no better time than playing it on Switch 2 right now. Um, but, other than that, there isn't a whole lot for me to say. Like, it's cool we got Elden Ring. It's cool we got, like other games confirmed for the future, like Hades 2, Borderlands 4, games like that. Um, but like I said, I'd be lying if I said most of these things were like, obviously, the big takeaway I think for a lot of people is going to be the new From Software game we got confirmed exclusively for Switch 2. That is a huge get from Nintendo, and I'm very, very excited to see that on the console. I personally am not a big fan of their games, so I probably won't pick it up. But it's a big get for Nintendo, like I just said, and a lot of people are going to be very, very excited for that game. I know Josh, if he was here, he'd be talking it up right now. So I definitely am happy to see Nintendo's getting big support like that. And I definitely think that could be a sign of things to come as it pertains to third parties because, Nintendo killed it with third parties on the Switch 1, and I'm happy to see that they're sticking to the Switch 2, um, and they're going to continue to support the future of Switch. That's very exciting. So I'm happy to see games of that caliber coming to this console. And not only that, but being exclusive, I mean, man, that's big. So I'm happy about that. Beyond that, on a new James Bond game. That's pretty cool. Excited for that. I don't know if they announced that was game exclusive Switch 2 or not, but even if it's not, I mean that's exciting to see that that's even a thing that's going to exist. Definitely excited about that. Um but yeah, we got a confirmation like EA, like we're gonna see Madden for the first time on Switch in a while. I don't think we've had Madden on Nintendo console since early Wii U days, so over 10 years ago now, so that's cool to see. Hogwarts Legacy's coming, we're getting Split Fiction, um, Daemon X Machina got confirmed. So ultimately like a lot of cool stuff being shown here. Tony Hawk, um, Hogwarts Legacy. Um So yeah, I think third party also killed it. I definitely was happy to see all the games shown off and confirmed for Switch 2 because again, third party support is one of the things that sells consoles, and Switch 2 has a really strong early lineup here. Whether it be games that are going to be coming out day one, games coming out not long after, or games just confirmed for the future at some point. I mean, regardless, a lot of great games were shown, and I think it's great to the Switch 2, especially people that only own a Switch 1. There's a lot of great games coming to Switch 2 that people have not played before if you own the Switch 1. So really excited about that. I think that was um, honestly impressive, just what games they were able to get. And I didn't even mention games like Deltarune, Civilization 7, 2K. So yeah, really impressed with the games we saw on Switch 2 from third party perspective. Really exciting. So yeah. Um, Lastly, I will talk about the Switch 1 or Switch 2 first party games. Um, because these are the ones I think I'm a bit conflicted on in terms of like what was shown. Um, no, let me start by saying this. I'm excited for the games. Every game shown off, I'm excited for in some capacity. Some more than others, but every game I think has something to be excited about. I don't think there's a game that looks bad or uninteresting or bad, um, or whatever. Um, but I have mixed feelings on them. I will start with the ones I really liked. Donkey Kong looked amazing. I'm really excited for that game. Personally, I would have rather seen 3D Mario instead. But this game clearly looks like it's made by the same team that does 3D Mario, particularly Odyssey. Um, and I think the game looks great. I will probably pick it up day one if I can. And it looks really good. So by no means am I down on the game or I think it looks bad. I actually think this is the most impressive looking game maybe that we saw, maybe even more than Mario Kart. I think it looks really, really good. I'm really excited to play it. Um, so props to them for that. That looks great. Next up, I think Hyrule Warriors looks amazing. I'm conflicted on how excited I actually am for this game because I did play the original one, the first uh Age of Calamity one that came out what was it, I guess 4.5 years ago now. I think it was holiday 2020. Um so I played that one and I thought it was good, but not great. I thought it was a fine game. I also admit that the game did not run that well, which probably is part of why I didn't like it. Obviously, the Switch 2 will likely fix that issue. So maybe I should be more excited for this one. I also never played Tears of the Kingdom, so how excited will I really be in that story? I don't know. But you can play as Zelda, so that's cool. Zelda seems to be the main character. So I think that's a cool feature, and I certainly think it looks great. I definitely think if you like Hyrule Warriors games or Dynasty Warriors in general, you'll probably like this game. So I definitely am happy it exists. I know we talked about, I believe on the Switch One Direct predictions, we mentioned that Koei Tecmo might have some presence here. Um, and we didn't see the Switch One Direct, obviously, then we kind of forgot about it. But sure enough, they're making a new game, and it's a Tears of the Kingdom Warriors. And so I'm happy to see that. I think that looks cool. Um, Next. I will talk about Bravely Default. That's not a first party game, but it's a game that's been only on the Switch. Um, I'm excited for that game. I'm happy it's getting a remake, or I guess a port, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it is, honestly. I know they changed the visuals on it a little bit, so clearly it's not just a port. But I'm happy that game is coming to Switch too. That game deserves a port so bad. Even though I think it sold okay on 3DS, it's still a great game. And I think, getting it to a console where people can play it on is really, really great. So I'm very happy to see Brave Default get another release because that game is fantastic. So huge shout out to that. Um, Next, I will talk about some of the like upgrades. So we got six games confirmed as having Switch 2 editions. Now, one thing I want to preface by saying this is I think Nintendo was a little bit confusing as to what games are getting what because after the direct ended, we got a bunch of different like reports and I guess things showing there are games getting different levels of upgrades on the Switch 2. Some games are getting a full-on Switch 2 edition, which I'll talk about in a second. And then there are other games that are getting just improved visuals and maybe another feature or two. Those are just getting slight upgrades on Switch 2. I don't even know if those are gonna like even have like Switch 2 cards or anything. I don't think they will, but I don't know for sure. There was like a list of like 12 of them. I wish I remember they were now, but I know Pokemon's Starlight Violet was on there, which thank God. Um, but outside of that, I don't know what games are all were on there, but those are getting some level of improvement on Switch 2. So that's cool to see. Um, well, we got six games that are getting Switch 2 editions. Now what that means is it's getting new content, new visuals, improved visuals. Um, and they're just going to be overall better games. And they're going to be re-released on the Switch 2 as Switch 2 versions of the same game, obviously with the improved and new features. Um, and they also have upgrade packs where I believe you can spend some amount of money. I don't even say how much to upgrade the game if you already own it. So that's cool to see because obviously I own most of those games that they announced. Um, so yeah, I believe I also read that if you own NSO Expansion Pass, you get those upgrades for free. I could be wrong about that. I don't know for sure if that's true, but I do believe I read that somewhere, and I think that is great because if they weren't free, I probably would not be getting them. So thank God I own Expansion Pass, I guess. Um, Anyway, the six games are as follows. It is Mario Party or Super Mario Party Jamboree, the two Zelda games, so Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and then Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon ZA. So those are the six getting new Switch 2 editions. Now, I think those are six good picks, honestly. I think, I do question some of them a little bit. Like I thought Xenoblade X would actually be one of them because the game just came out recently and it's a huge game. I think having it be improved anyway would be cool because I don't I think it runs pretty well on Switch 1, but it could always do better. I think Switch 2 would have been a great console to kind of have it be improved upon. Um but oh well. But like in particular, like Mario Party Jamboree has a new, extra side mode or two, where you can like use the mic and use the mouse controls. So that's really exciting. I don't know how much use I'll get out of that. Like I'm not sure how much I'll play that mode or those modes, but I'm happy they're at least there. Kirby and Forgotten Land, I think is probably the biggest story here because it's actually like a whole new like side mode. I had not played that Kirby game, but I do know it's good and I do like Kirby, so maybe you'll get me to pick it up finally. I don't know. And then of course the Zelda games didn't get a whole lot. We got some visual improvements as well as a little bit of new content. Like we got Zelda's journal, I think it is, or Zelda's notes, which you can now read. That's a cool thing. And then Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Pokemon ZA going to Switch 2 versions, I believe at launch. I assume they're going to get come out the same day as Switch 1 version. I hope they do. Um, I'm excited to see those. I think those games, honestly, probably, especially Metroid, it should have been Switch 2 to begin with. So um, I'm happy to see it's going to be on Switch 2. It was going to have a Switch 2 version because I mean, for both those games, especially Metroid, that's probably the version I'm going to get. So excited to see they're coming to Switch 2 and getting Switch 2 content, so to speak. Um, Next, I'll talk about GameCube. So GameCube NSO is now a thing. Very exciting. Of course, I think most people kind of saw this coming between the FAA filing that we got a few weeks ago, as well as the fact that it just felt like how they were the natural next consoles to get on NSO. People have been asking for GameCube and NSO for a long time. So I think finally getting it is exciting. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely happy to see this. Now, the thing I was most surprised by is the lack of games we're getting at release. We're only getting three games. And I said during the predictions discussion that it wouldn't be very many. I only had five, but even five I thought may have been a little bit bold of a prediction, like in terms of like it being that few. Um, and even then, like I never thought it would go below that. I never thought in a second we'd get three. And of course those games are just Wind Waker, F-Zero, and Soul Calibur 2, which I think are three solid games. I don't have a problem with this in particular, but only those three at launch, that's not a lot of games. So I hope that more come out soon because if they go as slow at drip feeding us these games as they have with the other ones, I mean, it's not going to be a great service for at least probably a year or two. So I hope they get out faster than they have in the past with like N64 and the other ones. So hopefully that happens. I don't know. And of course, it's coming with a GameCube controller that will be wireless. That's really exciting. I definitely want to pick that up if I can because that looks awesome. Um, so yeah, hopefully the pre-orders won't be too hard for that. I don't know. We'll see. Um, I guess now let's talk about the last few. So we also got, I believe, two other notable mentions of games that I want to talk about. All right, three more, excuse me. So first I'll talk about this new like basketball game thing. Um, I admit I have mixed feelings on this game. And let me preface by saying I don't think the game looks bad. I think it actually looks pretty good. Um, but I don't know. I question the longevity of this game because this is we talked about in the predictions discussion the idea of them having another like kind of like game like Splatoon or ARMS that would be a game that would kind of show off some of the features of the Switch 2 and have it be like a main focus of a new game. And that's what we're getting, that this is a new IP that is going to have, Switch 2 specific functionality and controls. Um, the biggest problem I have with this game is I don't think it looks exciting. It looks very lifeless in some ways. Like it's not very colorful. The gameplay looks simple, and I think I don't know. I don't. It doesn't look very exciting to me. Like I don't know. Like I hate to be down on the game before it even comes out, but I mean, like one of the biggest things that Splatoon and ARMS had going for them was like, look at how exciting and full of energy and colorful these games look. Um, and this game doesn't feel that way to me. It looked very, you know, not that, and I think that made it look very uninteresting to watch. Like I said, maybe it'll play great. I don't know. I think the gameplay looks all right, but I guess I'd be lying if I said I was excited about this game. I don't think it looks that great. I think, I already didn't care a lot for ARMS. I didn't think it was bad, but it wasn't great. Um, and this game looks worse than that. I mean, I just don't think it looks very exciting. So I hope that they show more about this game. Like I hope if there is a June direct, um, I sincerely hope they show more of this game and really sell why this game matters because if they don't do that, I don't know if a lot of people are gonna pick that game up. So yeah. That game definitely was the one I was like kind of the most down on, I'd say. Um don't think it looked that exciting. Next let's talk about this other game here. We have a tech demo game. Which I don't remember what it's called. It's called Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Um Here's the issue with this game. So I'll start with saying on the surface it looks cool. We've seen this in the past with other consoles. This game, obviously, I think kind of takes the place of like the 1-2 Switch or Nintendo Lands of the world on Switch 2. Whereas we've seen these kind of packing games with other consoles, like of course PS5 most recently had Astrobot's Playroom, which was a pretty damn good game actually, for just a pack-in short little game. It was actually pretty good in my opinion. Um, and I think this game looks pretty good as well. It's you can walk around a Joy-Con and you can try out the different features of the Switch 2's controllers and things it can do. I think that's cool. The issue is that we now know, I don't know if it said during the direct or not, but we know now this game is going to cost money. I don't know why they would do that. Who is going to pay money for a tech demo game? Who's going to do it? I don't know. And that worries me because the big takeaway, and more about this in a minute, is we still have to talk about Mario Kart and the price itself of this console. But one of the big takeaways from this direct for me was how confident Nintendo is. They are extremely confident, almost to the point, I think, of arrogance with the way they are pricing some of these items. Um, I I feel like they have this belief that they can price this at almost whatever they want, and people are going to just buy it because it's the Switch and it's Nintendo. People want the next Switch so bad that they're going to buy games for a surprising amount of money, more than they probably should. Um, and I don't know if that's going to backfire on them or not. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Um, I know I'm still going to try again day one if I can. Um, but I think there's a chance we might be looking at a 3DS situation here. Of course, the 3DS was infamous because it came out pretty expensive. People didn't buy it, and then the price went down after a certain amount of time. I'm not saying it's gonna happen with Switch 2, but I wouldn't be shocked because man, like the money for a lot of these things, the costs rack up fast. Um, it racks up fast, and it's going to be tough for I think a lot of families, especially in the economy we are currently experiencing. It is going to be tough for a lot of people and a lot of parents to justify buying this console, especially at launch. It is going to be difficult. Um, so that's what I'm worried about. I really am. Um, but yeah, I think the tech demo game, it looks all right. I don't think it looks bad, but costing money for that game, I there's no way I'm buying that. Like, there's no way. I just don't think it's worth. We'll see how much the game costs, but I mean, unless it's like $1, I mean, I just don't see myself buying this game. I don't think it looks interesting enough to buy. Like I said, Astro's Playroom is free on the PS5. And I'll tell you what, Astro's Playroom, I haven't played Welcome Tour yet, but Astro's Playroom looks better than Welcome Tour. So, um, I uh, I definitely can't help but feel like that was a little of a mystery by Nintendo. But we'll see. Um, Now, lastly, this is probably the highlight for a lot of people in the direct, and that was Mario Kart World. Um, Mario Kart World looks fantastic. I think it's really cool how it has kind of like open world-esque thing going on, I suppose. Where even when you're not racing with people, when you're not doing Grand Prix or whatever, you can kind of just drive around and just kind of see what's going on and the various parts of this giant racing region, so to speak. It looks cool. Um, it almost, in a sense, obviously I know they're not the same game, but like it almost kind of reminds me in a sense of like a GTA kind of thing, where it's like, you can kind of just drive around, just look at the various aspects of the world and see what other things are there. Um, I think that's really, really cool. And I honestly am kind of surprised it took them this long to do something like this. Maybe it's because it's so intensive and takes a lot to make a game like that work. But um, that was a great idea. I think it looks really cool, and actually, I could see myself totally doing that. Just like driving around aimlessly, looking at certain parts of different tracks and stuff. Um, so that's really cool. I think they did a good job of justifying why this game is worth getting, even if you already own Mario Kart 8 and all the various DLC that comes with it. Um, all the different characters you can play as, and there's a lot of characters in this game. I don't know how many there are in total, but there's definitely a lot. I mean, we saw like a lot of crazy random characters like a penguin, like a who else? A Goomba. Like we saw the cow from Moo Moo Meadows as a playable character. Like, come on, like that's awesome. And clearly they're trying to show that this game has a lot of content in as well, and that even if you don't think this will have as much as maybe Mario Kart Deluxe did, which would be hard if it did, but it's still going to have a lot of content nonetheless, and it's definitely not going to be as much of a downgrade maybe as some people might have feared it would be. So that's exciting. Um, Beyond that, the fact that there's different modes you can do, of course, there's always Grand Prix. There's also this kind of like battle royale mode where you have to finish in a certain place each time, or else you get knocked out. Almost kind of like a Fall Guys inspired thing. Um, I think it looks good. There's also, of course, the new racing features. You can grind on the grind thingies. I don't know, and then of course you can like do like wall jumps off the walls. Like, how cool is that? Um, so the gameplay looks fantastic. I think the game itself looks really, really good. Of course, it is a launch day game for the Switch too. Not many of those, and that's something about in a minute, but I think that is a very strong game to have as your big launch day title. I don't think it's quite as big as like a Breath of the Wild, for instance, but it is up there, I definitely think, and I certainly am excited for the game. So definitely looking forward to playing that when I can. Hopefully when the console comes out. But yeah, but the biggest issue with this game, and this has been a big talk online. I'm sure most of you guys know about this. Um, the game is going to cost $80. And that is tough to look past because and by the way, only it's $80 for the digital. If you want it physically, it's $90, which that is tough. It's tough for a few reasons. So first I'll mention the fact that this is now the first time Nintendo, I believe, has ever done a model where the physical versions are more than the digital versions, or hell, even just a different price in general than the digital versions. So that is surprising. But the fact is $80, the cheapest version of this game, being the digital version, is concerning to me. Um, you know, Nintendo on Switch One priced almost all their games at $60. There were a few that were 40, there were a few that were 50, there was one that was 70. Mario Kart World was 80 minimum, and it could even be 90 if you're a collector. And you want it physically. Now, to Nintendo's credit, there are other games coming out we now know are not that expensive. Like, for instance, Donkey Kong is only, I believe, 70. for digital, but it's still 80 or physical. Um, I think this is a very, very bold plan, and I think it very well could backfire on them. I talked about this earlier in terms of Nintendo's extremely confident about this console. I think they are really banking on the fact that a lot of Switch One owners and maybe even some non-Switch One owners are going to be really excited about this new console and really going to want to get it, regardless of how much it costs to get everything. Um, and I don't know if that's going to happen for sure. It might, but I definitely think it might not. And this would be a big reason why. Um, you know, I think $80 is much too much. I just do. Um, to me, there is no world this game should be $80. Um, PS5 and Xbox Series games are currently 70. Switch One games were 60. So you're already looking at a 33% price increase for Mario Kart World, just based off of that game versus most Switch One games. Um, and that's expensive. I mean, $80 for just a baseline game. I mean, that's the most we've seen baseline for a video game in a long time. A long time. And it does already deter people. You know, people do not want to pay $80 for one game. And I don't blame them. I don't want to either. That's crazy expensive. Um, Now to be fair, there is a bundle of the Switch 2 that comes with Mario Kart World that is only $50 more than the baseline SKU. So that does help a little bit. If you're already playing on the Switch 2, you can get that bundle and get it for $30 less. But even still, that's still way too much in my opinion. And I think they kind of know. I'm sure they know that's going to be a thing people consider when they buy a Switch 2 is, oh, I can pay $50 more and get this game for almost half off. I mean, people are going to think about that. I'm sure people are already thinking about it. Um, so yeah, but yeah, $80 is a lot of money. And if we'll see how many games going forward cost this much, and maybe they're only doing it for Mario Kart because I know Mario Kart is a big IP for Nintendo, and maybe they think they can get away with it because people are going to want to get the new Mario Kart. But I think regardless, I mean, it is concerning that they would even consider doing this for one game. Because if they'll do it for one game, they'll do it for more. So we'll see how many games end up being $80 down the stretch, during the Switch 2's life cycle. But it is not a good precedent to set. It is concerning because now that Nintendo's done it, it means not only can they do it with more of their games, but now it opens the door for people like Sony and Microsoft to do the same. Um, Maybe with future games, whether it be on PS5 or PS6 or series or the next Xbox. So that is concerning to me. I'm legitimately worried about that. And I sincerely hope that is not the norm going forward. Because if it is, um, it's going to be hard to own one of these things and have a lot of games because ultimately people are not going to pay that much for games on this system. It's going to be too expensive. Um, so we'll see what happens with that. The other big issue with it is, of course, the physical versions are $10 more, which is not great because it means that not only are you deterring people from going out and getting these games physically for people who prefer it physically or collectors or what have you, but it also kind of puts these physical retailers in a tough spot. You look at places like Walmart, Best Buy, Amazon, whoever. Um, they're now in a tough spot because there are going to be people out there that are going to buy the games digitally because, well, guess what? It's $10 cheaper if you buy digitally than physically. Um, so you are not only screwing over potentially your own fans, but you're also screwing over retailers from wanting to sell your games because, well, guess what? People aren't going to buy them as much as they would have before. So I think this is a very bold and, like I said, maybe even arrogant Nintendo. I feel like they are really, really confident that this system is going to just be clamored for amongst the masses. And maybe it will. Like I said, I certainly think there is reason to believe it could be that way. I mean, the Switch 1 is still the best-selling consoles of all time, and a lot of people have been really looking forward to seeing the Switch 2. But man, I mean, some of these prices are brutal, and I definitely feel like it very easily could come back to bite them. And I don't even know if I'd be that surprised. Because yeah, these are expensive, man. I mean, And that's just talking about buying the Switch 2 with one game. I mean, yeah. So I guess I mentioned this earlier. Switch 1 or Switch 2 by itself will cost 450. With Mario Kart World will be 500. Like we said, I think people acknowledged 450 was possible, but definitely was not the most likely thing people saw. Um, and then you think of the fact that beyond that, it's gonna cost money for a new Pro Controller. Pro controllers are now $80. New Joy-Con sets are now $90. Where games are at minimum 70, if not 80 or 90. That new camera feature costs, I believe, over 100. Of course, you could buy a new SD card now. Like the Switch 2 is a very expensive console to buy and use effectively. There are a lot of different, features and add-ons that are going to make this console very, very expensive. And I, you know, I question how well this console is going to sell um in the short term and maybe even the long term because I mean this is definitely not especially with the way the economy is right now. I don't think this is a price point that people are going to be willing to invest in. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say this is too expensive. I cannot buy this right now. And like I said, I definitely understand that. I might be the same way even. Um, because I don't want to pay that much for this console and all the things that come with it. And even though I think it looks really cool, I really want to try it, you know, this is a lot of money. And I think that's ultimately the biggest downfall of this console. I mentioned earlier, if you put this into three categories, being the Switch 2 itself, third-party games and first-party games. I think they nailed it with the Switch 2 itself in terms of the features it has and justifying the price point of the console itself. Um, third-party games, nailed that too. A lot of great support from third-party developers and a lot of great games coming to the console. But the Switch 1 games, I think, while I like what we saw, there were not a lot of them. We only saw about five first-party games today, and one of them was a tech demo looking game, and one was this ARMS kind of game that is just a kind of way of showing off one of the main features of Switch 2 that I don't think looks that exciting personally. If you do, I'm happy for you truly, but I don't think it looks that great. Um, and so that leaves us with Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, and I guess Kirby's Air Riders. I didn't mention that game, but Kirby's Air Riders looks fantastic. I'm really excited for that one. Made by Sakurai, of course. And yeah, it's great to see a Kirby Air Riders game. Yeah, I'm surprised they did this. Like, I am legitimately surprised that this is what we got from Sakurai because not only is it going to compete with Mario Kart, both racing games, but obviously Sakurai has not worked on Kirby in a long time. The last Kirby game Sakurai did was Kirby Air Ride 1. So was definitely surprised to say that be the game that Sakurai ended up making, but I'm excited for it. I love Kirby Air Ride, so definitely excited to see what they do with it. Hopefully, City Trial comes back because City Trial was the best, and I really, really hope we see that. So excited for that game. Um, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, there wasn't a lot of first party games to be excited about. I mean, it was those three and then GameCube for me that really did it. But like that's only so much. Only two of those four things are coming out of launch between Mario Kart and GameCube. Donkey Kong comes out a month and a half later, and I don't even think we know when Kirby comes out yet. So yeah, I mean, like ultimately, like especially if you are someone owns other consoles and you have played all these third-party games that are coming out of launch, there are not a lot of games I feel like that you're really, really excited for come launch day and even for the first few months. I mean, Mario Kart and Donkey Kong is mostly it. I mean, like like I said, there are not a lot of other big new titles coming beyond that. Like a lot of third party games are coming that we already have. And of course there is Deltarune, chapters 3 and 4. That's pretty exciting. I believe 3 and 4 are both new. Um, yeah, they are. But that's I still feel like that is not a lot for in terms of like brand new games or like additions to games even. Um, so I don't know. I question how this console's going to look in a few months. Like I hope we get a direct sooner than later again, whether it be like June or July. Hopefully to kind of show more of the games we're going to see in the short term future because we didn't get a lot of them and I feel like we need to see more. I really do. So so yeah, overall, yeah, I would like if I was doing like a rating, I give Switch 2 itself like I probably give like an A plus. I give third party games A plus, but I give first party games, and there's always saw in the direct itself, not to mention the prices. I'd probably give the first party games like a B minus. Like I really don't think they did a great job of really impressing people, especially like hardcore Nintendo fans. Um, about why you need to own this console versus some of the other ones. I mean, outside of Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, there's not a lot of reason for me to own this console over ordering a PS5 right now. There just isn't. So, um, and while I think those two games look really, really good, I'm excited for them. Those two games alone are not enough for me. They're just not. So I hope we see more soon because once again, this will be like the third or fourth console in a row where the launch window for the Switch 2, or for Nintendo is not going to be that great, especially outside of first party or excuse me, outside of third party. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, overall, I'm excited for this console. I think it looks good. I'm still gonna try to get one as soon as I can. So maybe all that complaining and rambling is fruitless. I don't know, but. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of people complaining online, and I think especially as it pertains to prices, I don't blame them. I think the pricing for some of these things, whether it be games, add-ons, maybe even the console to an extent, I think is understandable. And ultimately, I feel like it might be something that Nintendo looks back on and regrets. I do think that is possible. So. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully you're all excited for this. Honestly, I'm so excited for this console immensely. Um, I look forward to seeing more about it. Of course, the Treehouse is going on right now. They're doing Mario Kart stuff. Um, so might tune into that. Who knows? But yeah. I think overall it was a good direct. I think especially when you look at just the direct itself, the direct was pretty good. I think they did a good job of showing different features of the Switch 2. And I think even the third party games especially, but I think overall the games were really fun to watch and cool to see announced. So yeah. I am definitely excited to see more soon, hopefully. So yeah, it's obviously the price wasn't included in the direct, which that should have been a telltale sign from the beginning that it was probably not going to be what we were hoping for. But oh man, I mean, it seemed like the more we saw after the direct, the worse it was. But yeah, but yeah, let me know what y'all think about this new console and the direct. Hopefully y'all are excited. I know I am, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Take it easy. Bye.